This Sunday morning, we're going to leave Moses and the cranky children of Israel in the wilderness for a while. Let them stew in their own juices, and we'll pick the journey back up next Sunday morning. But this week, I'd like to focus our attention on one of the church's most ancient and beautiful hymns, as it is found in the letter to the Philippians. It speaks of Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not regard equality with God as something to be exploited, but emptied himself, taking on the form of a human slave, being born in human likeness, and being found in human form. He humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even death on a cross. While ancient Greek and Roman religion has many examples of the gods coming to earth, usually for a little dalliance with a virgin or two, the idea of a god taking on human form and experiencing all of the things that humans experience would have been viewed not only as something unprecedented, but as something scandalous. And not just in the ancient world. I believe it is perceived in much the same way today when we take time to think about it. A God who is in every aspect of our human existence, experiencing it right alongside of us. It can be a little scary, but it can also be a very great comfort, particularly in times like these. To think that God is experiencing COVID with us, the fears, the frustrations, the anxieties, the restlessness, the exhaustion, the questions. To know that God walks with us, understanding what we are going through, can be a great comfort. That same God we find on the streets of Portland and Minneapolis and Louisville, in the midst of the violence, in the midst of the injustice, because God understands what it is to deal with those things. It is that same God that will walk with us in the weeks ahead as we move toward the polls and elect a president. It will be that same God that will fill the seat on the Supreme Court. It is that God who is with us from the moment we wake until we shut our eyes at the end of the day. That God is in our play, in our work, in our relationships. Every aspect of our life is filled and accompanied by God, who understands us in a way that is at times scandalous. For he knows us, and he still loves us, despite all the craziness and goofiness that we get into. Christ becomes for us an example of how to live in that scandalous relationship. It is one of humility. It is recognizing that God will do what God will do, even when we think we're in charge. It is tempting, particularly in times like this, to believe that we have a good understanding of God, We don't even understand ourselves. How can we understand God? But we try. We are certain that God is going to support our candidate in November, that God will put on the bench the one who will support our views and our values. Some believe we're living in the end times and that COVID is a sign of that. Perhaps God is not ending this, but just writing a new chapter. Our challenge is to walk humbly with God in such a way that we live into what God has in mind for us and for the world we live in. As we are reminded once again, our calling is to emulate the values of this God: mercy, loving kindness, justice, shalom, and humility. Christ has humbled himself and become obedient unto death, even death on the cross.